Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Chicago White Sox. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins travel to guaranteed rate. It's very hard to keep track.
Guaranteed rate field.
See, but I saw numerous different people call it rate field. They dropped the guaranteed, Dan.
I mean, you know, sometimes they truncate, right? Truncation, as we've seen with velocity becoming something shorter, that I'm not going to say. I don't want that to be on tape of me saying that, David.
No, we'd make a sounder out of that for sure.
Would.
Dan. But anyway,
I'm sure.
They go to Chicago. They drop 2 of 3. They make the White Sox look like a pretty phenomenal baseball team, Dan.
Okay, so this is interesting. So we watched Angels in the Outfield last night as a family. And I don't know if you feel this as a dad, but your children think that every movie that you pick is going to be awful, and then they love it in the end, right? So my children ended up loving Angels in the Outfield. Great film. When was the last time you watched that, would you say?
Oh, I was probably 14. It's been a long time. I mean, but I remember it, Dan. It's a formational
movie. So
movie.
What do you remember about Angels in the Outfield? What stands out to you?
The way that the dad says when the Angels win the pennant, or if the Angels win the pennant, that's up there. And when the main Angel guy, Doc from Back to the Future, when he's swinging on the foul pole, that part, I remember that. Sure. Okay, and then of course the flapping of the arms. Like those are probably the 3 things that stick. And Danny Glover, just because every line he delivers with the same amount of energy, I think, throughout the entire film.
It's a terribly sad movie, David. This is a story about a child being abandoned by his father, right? And then like a coach who has been like worn down by life, and he doesn't like value relationships anymore because he was let down as a child.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Exactly. So we're watching this. I'm crying most of the movie, right? Because this is such a terrible situation. So it's not about baseball. That's kind of the thing about this movie. It's not really about the baseball. And there's a lot of that slapsticky stuff, you know, that you have, you know, like one of my kids loved the part with the baseball bouncing around in all these weird directions when like Adrian Brody's character, who by the way, Adrian Brody's in that movie, just like moving all around. So he loved that part. But then, on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie only has 31% fresh, which I think is pretty harsh. I get that it's mid-90s sports movie and it's not great. But like, is there no joy in the hearts of these reviewers here, David?
Dan, you sort of have to separate movies into a couple of different categories, right? Like, you wouldn't say Angels in the Outfield is objectively a good movie.
Okay, so and that's totally true, right? So I get that. But there are a couple of baseball things that really bothered me. Okay, so in the final game of the movie, right? So there's this guy named Gasper. I don't remember if he's got a last name. I'm going to call him Mickey, or first name. I'm going to call him Mickey. All right,
Absolutely.
So Mickey Gasper. All right, so there's a grounder to short, and there's a runner at second, 1 out. And the shortstop goes deep into it, fields it, slides, and makes a throw to first, but doesn't get him. And inexplicably, the Gasper doesn't go to third on this play. So now you got runners at first and second with 1 out. There's a fly ball to the outfield that then becomes a sac fly, which should have tied the game, right? This is a 1-run game here if you're working backwards.
Hang on, I'm a little confused. I thought they were on first and second.
They were on first and second, but the guy should have been on third if he was playing baseball properly.
Okay.
Right?
I see. So
should have gone to third on the grounder.
Yes, you're saying what should have happened. It should have been a sac fly. Okay,
should have been.
I'm with you.
In any case, so now he does tag and go to third. So it's runners at the corners here, 2 outs, and then Mel Clark, who by the way is the best anti-smoking campaign ever, because Al the Angel comes up and says before the game that he's going to join us in 6 months, and you've already gotten attached to Mel Clark, and you're like, what? This guy's going to die? So okay, all right, so that's a bummer. But anyway, so then Mel Clark plunks the guy in the back, and so it's bases loaded, 2 outs. He throws 1 pitch, and they announce on the radio cast he has thrown 156 pitches in this game in the top of the 9th. I'm thinking, well, Rocco wouldn't let that happen, right? So Rocco wouldn't make this movie possible. In this movie, David, there are 3 complete games just portrayed by the pitchers here, right? The Twins have won all season, right? Anyway, George Knox is not Rocco Baldelli. It's wonderful, right? Mel Clark makes the play at the end to get the out against the White Sox, right? It's this guy named Kesey, Kid or Die Kesey, which is a great nickname. Anyway, listeners, you should watch it again. Watch it with your kids and just see what you think. It's better than you might anticipate.
Okay, so a couple of notes here. Just Dan and I watch movies, I think, very differently. The main thing being that, like, Dan remembers all of the names of the characters, which actors played them. And he, like, when he's telling you what's happening, he's like, and then this guy, and, like, gives the name and stuff. Never in a million years would I be able to explain a movie like that with the names of the characters and the actors. But one of my favorite Dan Thompson moments ever is I was telling him about a moment I had at work in a big group meeting where someone was talking about Home Alone, and they were talking about the other guy, not the mobster guy, you know, the tall.
Oh yeah, Daniel Stern. Yeah, he's
okay,
the
yes,
voice.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad you said that, because I was telling Dan about this, and I had said somebody was talking about this at work, and I said, "Oh, well, that guy won an Oscar. You know, you got to chill out," just as a joke. So I said that, and Dan like names the actor. I'm like, who knows the name of the actor?
He's the Wonder Years. He's the narrator in the Wonder Years. Daniel Stern, great guy.
It's just, but so just the way that you were telling about Angels in the Outfield was very Dan Thompson, where it's like, I'm going to tell you the names of the characters and the actors and everything.
Oh, man.
And it's like different ways to watch movies.
Heartbreaking
I'm in the
film,
story.
David. Heartbreaking film. Oh my gosh. Watch it with a box of chocolates and a box of tissues. I think that's what you need, David.
We're not even done with the movie talk. This is a great transition. Folks, we're going to have a new podcast. It's called In the Film Room with David and Dan. It's going to be great. It's all about movies. But no, Field of Dreams, Dan, it's happening. The Twins are headed to Iowa.
They come to Iowa, places they can't even fathom.
I can fathom it, David. The Twins are going to be playing there next summer. We don't know when yet. It's going to be early August. The schedule is going to be released on Tuesday. So thank you, MLB, for giving me a warning so I can set my schedule here. Because, David, I got to sit down and plan my summer vacations next year.
Well, okay, I'm a little confused, though. Do you know how they do tickets? Like, am I going to actually be able to get tickets to this, or is it going to be like a couple $1,000s to go?
I have no idea. But I am going to try to go. I mean, if it's feasible, I got to go.
Certainly.
We got to go to Field of Dreams, David.
Make it happen. See, you can fly. The thing is, you're still going to have to fly into Minneapolis. So
I will.
Drive
then we'll drive down together.
Yeah, we're never going to fly into Iowa anywhere. That doesn't work.
Nobody flies to Iowa, David.
Dan, we should talk about this baseball team eventually here. Let's go into the recap.
Series recap.
Game 1 here. The Twins do win this one 9-7. Now this one, I got to get my sounder right here.
He is the one.
Royce Lewis has himself a game. He's 3 for 5 with a grand slam, a great defensive play to get a double play. We will talk more about that a little bit later. But the short of it is he has a grand slam in the 4th inning, the 6th of his career, but his first since 2023. I thought this was apt. We just talked about these stats last episode.
We'll talk a lot about Royce a bit later, Dan, both the positive and the negative here. But both teams have a lot of base runners in this. The runners in scoring position, White Sox go 5 for 12. Minnesota goes 5 for 15. And I think this would have been a much better game if both of these teams were competing for anything, Dan.
Totally. And it could have been like 15-12 or something like that.
Yes.
Zebby Matthews on the mound. We're going to talk about all the starters later, too. He can't quite finish the 5th. Allows 4 earned runs, including the 2 in the bottom of the 5th that tied the game. But at the top of the 7th, the Twins get a couple runs on a big effort. We'll talk about that. I want to talk more about Kyle Funderburk later. He got a couple, 4 really key.
Cody Funderburk, Dan.
Cody Funderburk. I got Kyle on the notes. But anyway, he gets the win. Cabrera gets into trouble, allows 3 runs, but that's when Lewis makes his nice double play.
In the big inning, would you say, Dan?
It's like a pun. It's a play on words.
I get it. Very funny. Bottom of the 9th, Justin Topa, who had a terrible bottom of the 8th, but gets all 3 in order in the 9th, gets his 3rd save. And the Twins win, and they're off to the races.
Well, if the races are losing baseball games, then sure, Dan, they're off to losing baseball games. Game 2, Twins lose this one 7-3. I don't know. There's not a lot to say here. Abel makes his start, right? And this is the guy who came over at the deadline. Who'd we get him for?
Jahan Duran. He was the Duran
okay.
and Taiit trade. The Twins got Taiit as well.
So 1st and 3rd inning are great. The 2nd inning is very bad. 6 earned runs, 62 pitches, Dan?
Yeah, 43 strikes. I mean, it was a good outing. It was 63 pitches, 42 strikes. A good outing, except for the time that he was clearly tipping his pitches in that 2nd inning there.
Which, I don't ever notice those things. Like, I'm not smart enough to see that. I don't have the baseball acumen to catch on to that. But a few different guys on X, I think Parker Hageman was one of them, who sort of took some screenshots to explain that he's holding the ball deeper in the glove on the fastball, and he's higher fire in the glove on the changeup or the breaking stuff. Hopefully, if he gets that sorted out, they can correct that, and then he could be more effective and see more of that first and third inning and less of that second inning guy, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. Thomas Hatch, who was his piggyback, and he pitched 5 other innings. I'm going to talk about him later too. 1 earned run, 5 Ks. Twins runs they get 3, but they're all on solo shots. Cody Clemens, Matt Wallner, and Royce Lewis. And if there's one thing Cody Clemens can do well, it is flip a bat. And this was one of those, he looked like a juggler out there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there.
One of the cooler bat flips, Dan, done by a guy who just hit a homer in a game that means nothing. But so he flips the bat just once, right? And so he catches the top of the bat in his hand. He flips it to himself. And then he tosses it overhand towards the bench, which, again, I understand who this guy is. He doesn't know who he is. There's no question that Cody Clemens has no idea who he is. But when he hits a home run, that's the moment, Dan, when he does know who he is. And he's a guy with swagger who knows how to bat flip appropriately.
He does. You put all this together, though. You put a couple guys on base, and you take away the pitch tipping. And this is probably a win for the Twins here, right? But instead, it's a 4-run loss.
You said some outlandish things on this podcast, but a 7-3 loss, you're saying that if you change 9 or 10 things that happened in this game, this is totally a Twins victory.
The big hit for the White Sox is a guy named Colson Montgomery. He's a rookie. He had the grand slam here off of Abel in that big inning. And then that continues on into game 3 here, which I would argue, without the pitch tipping potentially here, I don't know if Taj Bradley was also tipping his pitches. This could have been a win, David, but instead it was an 8-0 loss here for the Twins to the White Sox.
If only, Dan.
If only.
Okay, so Taj Bradley and Mick Abel, 2 guys who we picked up at the deadline who are potentially supposed to factor into the
key pieces here for the future
into the rotation next season. Not great, Dan. Not debuts.
No.
Not the Pulltabs were looking for something to hang their hats on, like to show the fans that we weren't total fools at the deadline here. We made some good moves. Look at this. Look at this depth we've added to the rotation. This is not what you show, Dan, at the table to impress the people looking at your wares.
No, but remember, Torrey Hunter got called up and sent down like 4 times, right, before he had a near Hall of Fame career for the Twins. So I think...
Dan, your max to min, I think you need to calibrate a little bit here between these should have been Twins wins and they're just like Torrey Hunter. Like there's some middle ground here that you're desperately missing, Dan.
I might be. A couple particulars here. So Taj Bradley, he actually goes 5 innings here, but he gives up 3 runs in the first and 4 in the second. Then he settles down, and you've critiqued this before where, quote, settling down might just be the White Sox like setting down their bats and then being like, let's move on here to the next game. They also, hilariously, so Pearson Ole comes in and piggybacks. The Twins only used 4 pitchers in the last 2 games here, remarkably saving their big arms in the bullpen. Very savvy by Rocco.
I'm just curious, which guys are your big arms, if you had to say right now?
Well, Justin Topa and Michael Tonk. I mean, goodness, we have a sounder for him.
Good morning, Vietnam!
So anyway.
Dan, you are in a mood this evening. I love it. It's very silly. I'm a big
well,
fan.
You have to be when the Twins are so bad recently. They finished 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. They do have 5 hits. They have 4 walks, but no runs. And again, Colson Montgomery, a big 2-run home run for the White Sox. 112.5 off the bat, 423 feet. That's kind of when I knew it was over.
Dan, when I know it's over is when the steak is too far done. Right? Like some guys, you ever sit there, and I don't like to be this guy. I don't like to be the guy watching the other guy grill, and saying like, you going to flip that? You going to flip that? But Dan,
oh man, terrible.
It's prime grilling season. I find myself in front of grills all the time, and it's time to gather the neighbors for a good old backyard barbecue. And lucky for you, Dan Thompson, Cubs Foods is your one-stop shop for all your grocery needs. With everyday fresh products and a wide selection, you'll be in great shape to host the next grill out with all your backyard essentials. Grab your fresh produce and deli meats, party trays, and bakery all in one stop. With over 100 locations in Minnesota, check out your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all of your summertime essentials.
Touch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
Feeling good about life here, David.
Yeah.
So this was a competitive one. None of us picked Royce Lewis, who actually had 10 points to lead the team. But I picked Luke Keeschel, who had 5, even a couple errors in there, but he still had 5 points. Hoax picked Lee with 4. Listeners had Buxton for 3. You picked Larnach with 2. This is a crucial win, though, David, because it pulls me even on the season now with Hoax.
You think Hoax will start responding to text messages now that he knows he's not in sole possession of the lead?
So we're tied at 15. The listeners have 10.5, and then you have 10. So maybe it's a 2-horse race, but I'm excited about what's still to come here in this Puckett's Picks the rest of the way.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? is losing fun.
So I am going to give it to Lewis here. 4 for 12, 5 RBI. Looked very much like the Royce of 2023. They were talking on the broadcast between Span and Provis, talking about how Royce is sort of adjusting his swing. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But how he's probably going to strike out more, but he's finding more of that power that he seemed to be lacking. And I hope that's the case moving forward. I don't mind a few more strikeouts, Dan, if he's hitting a ball out every fifth at bat.
No, he looked really quite good. My guy, this is hard to find another one, right? But I went with Thomas Hatch, the 30-year-old journeyman reliever here. What an interesting line that he's had. So he's appeared in 4 games for the Twins now. He's at least gotten into a 5th inning, each one of them. One of them was a start. I mean, this guy is being used in all kinds of different ways. But in 3 of those starts, he's only allowed, 3 of those appearances, he's only allowed 1 or 0 runs. Like, I wonder if they find a way to find some of these guys, because this is an interesting experiment that they're doing, using all these pitchers these different ways just to kind of see who they have. So he might be a guy that you got to say, at least through this small sample size, maybe he's a guy worth keeping around.
He could be, Dan. And well, to be honest, that bar is going to be pretty low come next season, especially if the Twins aren't going to spend any money in the offseason, which obviously seems like the most likely scenario. For my bench, Dan, I'm going to go with Lewis off the field. So as far as Beast on the field, he had a very good series. But off the field, Dan, we just talked about this last episode. Royce Lewis needs to understand that when you are facing the media, a lot of what people are going to see is in print. They're not going to see the video. They're not going to hear your tone. They're not going to hear your inflection. I want you to hear this, Dan. So this is what Lewis says. He said, I feel like I'm kind of on an island and trying to figure out things on my own. I haven't felt comfortable all year. I wish I did. If I did, I think my numbers would be totally different. I'm just looking for comfort in the box. So that's the first quote, which is concerning because, Dan, if you hear that, don't you hear nobody is helping me? Nobody's giving me pointers. My coaches aren't listening.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
I play that because it's not that hard to do a couple things. 1, ask for help. And 2, not say that publicly. That's not the way to express yourself. You have many batting coaches here. There's plenty of people to talk to about it, which then makes the second part of what you're going to quote here even more maddening.
So frustrating. So then Lewis continues, it's also hard to make a full in-season adjustment because you can try that, and those 30 games or at-bats of trial go towards your stats. Do you really want to sacrifice that? And if it doesn't work, then you go back to what you were doing before. It's always hard. I know that Michael Harris II just did a significant change. Being under contract probably helps because he knows what he's making that year and the year after. For someone like me, I'm fighting to take care of myself and my family. Latrell Sprewell, shout out.
I was thinking the same thing.
I don't want to put any of those stats in jeopardy. I'm trying to do what's best as far as possible, but feeling like I've been on an island, it's kind of tough. So we should shout out too. This is all from a Dan Hayes article over at The Athletic, who did a great job on this interview. But Dan, what is this guy? First of all, yeah, if he was hitting 350 and he had 30 home runs at this point, this is a totally different conversation. Your stats aren't good enough to justify not trying to make adjustments, especially when you contradict this whole island narrative that you're trying to build, when clearly coaches are trying to give you things to try, and you're refusing to do so because you're worried you might lose 10 to 12 batting points when you could increase it by 30 to 40 if you listen to them. It's maddening to me that clearly he doesn't have anybody helping with his public image or whatever those publicists who sort of help people explain what you should say to the media and what you shouldn't. And a little off topic here. As a person, Dan, like out in the world, a lot of times I'm seen pretty like happy-go-lucky and like a positive person. Not so much on the podcast sometimes, understandably so. Hard to be positive about this team all the time.
Well, don't worry, be happy.
But what bothers me is that so often in these articles, they talk about how Royce Lewis is always this source of positivity. Why is he the only guy on the team, Dan, who I ever read saying things like this that are ridiculous, that don't sound like somebody who's happy and positive all the time?
Nor a guy, I mean, his OPS is 675. He's batting 8th or 9th or 7th in this lineup. Like Royce, I think a couple swing adjustments might not be the worst thing for you to do for your baseball career. It might get you a better paycheck down the road with your next contract that you're so concerned about. Dan Hayes also said in some of the comments about this that this is maybe being a little bit overblown and that, there's no culture problem or anything like that. But Royce, this is an image issue. You're not ingratiating yourself very well with a fan base that I think would love to love you right now.
They'd love to love anything, Dan. Anything that doesn't have to do with ownership, they will love. It's like we often talk about, Dan, how if our wives accidentally bump into us in the hallway, like sometimes that's the only amount of affection we need, just to know they know that you're still there, Dan.
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
Oh, that's a bold one, David. Let's move on here. Well, to my bench, actually, I'm gonna talking about my bench. All three starting pitchers go on my bench here. We're facing the White Sox here. I mean, we're not talking about the Dodgers or the Red Sox or the Yankees or anybody good, right? We're talking about one of the worst teams in baseball, which I realize we're always now talking about one of the worst teams in baseball, I think, when we're on this podcast. But I'm putting them all on my bench. And we'll continue here, but let's go on here to Rocco's Rewind. I got more to say.
Rocco's Rewind.
This seems to run counter to what I just said, but I really actually like sticking with Mick, Abel, and Taj Bradley as long as Rocco did. And I think he hooked them after they had pitched a little bit better and kind of worked through some issues. I really do think that's going to build their confidence in the long run. I know that you have teased me before about
this is a crazy perspective.
But I think he handled them well here. To not pull Mick Abel after the really bad second, you got to have him eat some innings anyway. You might as well hope that he can show a little bit better, and he did.
Okay, so at risk of sounding a bit hypocritical, in game one, we're really used to seeing Rocco use a guy for one out and then sitting him down, especially earlier in the season. And that was really frustrating, especially when it was a big arm like Coulomb or Jackson. They were just used to get out of an inning. And even if they only threw 2 pitches, Rocco wouldn't let him go out for another inning. But I like with Funderburk, he let him go out, get the out after Zebby sort of faltered. And then he let him go out for the 6th inning also, which at this point, Dan, Funderburk is one of our better relievers.
Okay, we should keep going because that's just what I want to talk about in the next segment.
Minnesota Moment.
Kyle Funderburk has been a wonder kid here
Cody,
for the last month.
Stop saying Kyle.
Sorry, Cody. There's Cody Clemens, and then I thought there could only be one Cody. Like
there could only
Highlander
be
thing.
one.
Thank you, exactly. You're with me on that one. But since August 1st, do you know how many earned runs he's got allowed?
How many?
0, David.
Dude.
0 earned runs in 11 appearances here, 8 1/3 innings. Now, granted, only 2, 3, 4 of those are more than just like getting an out or two. But quite seriously, Kyle Funderburk, God, I said it again. Cody Funderburk is turning into a reliable left-handed arm. Who knew that moving 2 inches over on the pitching mound could really help? Because I think that's the adjustment that I've heard that he made.
2 inches is a lot, Dan, when we're talking about strike versus no strike.
I suppose so. So anyway, I thought that his appearance in game 1 was the moment of the series for me because I think he's figured some things out, and this could at least fill one of the 5 bullpen spots the Twins are looking to fill next season.
Is it only 5? I thought
it's 5. He would actually be migrating from the extras to the core.
Oh,
so that would be helpful, I guess, to have. You got to fill the core, right? That's what you got to do first.
I think they're all pretty much extras at this point. I don't know if there's really a core.
Might be.
Okay, well, so game 1, top 4, Royce's grand slam obviously needs to be a moment, but I actually want to talk about later in that same game in game 1. So top of the 7th, there's this hustle play where a ball is hit, and it's going to be a double play, but they have to go to first initially because they have to get Brooks, and then they're going to go to get Jeffers at second. Well, they go to first, they get the out there, and then they overthrow second trying to get Jeffers on the tag, and Jeffers on that overthrow hustles to score, which I just love to see that they're still trying. Guys are still putting in that effort. And then Brooks Lee, actually, later, he makes a great play to slide in safely to home by sliding to the far outside of the bag and sort of reaching around and tagging the home plate. It was a shallow single to left field, but he had to run from second, and he looked good, Dan. I mean, I just love to see that effort they're still putting forth.
Clever girl.
That's what we need to see from these guys right now, because this is just an extended audition for almost all of these guys. So I love those moments. I think game 1, again, it showed a lot of really good things about the Twins. The games 2 and 3 just didn't.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's Musings.
I was looking at these stats. I was looking at the schedule, and I was looking at the standings. And at this point, obviously, the standings don't matter. I don't even put them in the spreadsheet anymore because it doesn't really matter. But right now, the Twins are sitting at 59 and 71. At the deadline, they were 51 and 57. So they've played 22 games, and they have since gone 8 and 14. My question to you, Dan, is what would the Twins' record be if they had made 0 moves at the deadline? They still have Correa, they still have France, they still have Bader, they still have Castro, they still have Coulomb, they still have Jax, they still have Duran. What would the Twins' record be? They still have Paddock, they still have Dobnik. It's hard to keep track of all those names, Dan.
I think maybe they wouldn't have gotten back to 500, but I think they'd be closer. Yeah, I think they would be within, a game or 2 of 500, which, where does that put them in the wild card right now if they were still at that point?
Interesting that you say that, Dan, because that was I was leading the witness a little bit here, Dan. Right now, the low wild card spot is the Mariners, who are currently 9 games above 500. So looking at the stats,
they wouldn't be any closer, really, right?
No, they would. They would be 4.5 back from the 3rd wild card spot.
I would like to say that feels like a lot, but I have no credibility in these conversations after last year's Detroit Tigers surge. So
that's what I'm saying, though. Isn't it crazy to think if they were playing 500 baseball right now, we would still be talking about a potential postseason berth?
Yeah. I just think what's tricky. Well, what I would have liked to see is better performances out of the guys they traded for. You know, like Abel and Bradley coming out and being excellent at this point would at least like kind of put some salve upon that wound and be like, oh, well, at least they tried. You know, like at least we can see for the future. So we'll see. I really would like to see more out of those two in particular as we get closer here, because I do think they're going to keep them up. We talked last episode about maybe shutting Bailey Ober down. I do think maybe they're going to find some injuries for him and maybe even Joe Ryan once Pablo's back and once SWR is back.
We'll see. I don't know. I don't think 500 is out of the question, especially if Correa got hot. Now, it has been real fun watching Carlos Correa struggle again with the Astros.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
But maybe
you keep bringing him up. I thought I was the one obsessed with him here, but you keep bringing him up.
It's hard not to be a little bit obsessive about Carlos Correa, Dan. It's a weird moment. Like, Minnesota sports has a bunch of weird moments. This one, as far as like contracts and trades and stuff, this is a weird one.
Well, I've got a contract question for you. So if you were allowed contract extensions here by this team, and you talked about Brooks Lee last time, I'll let you clarify that in a second here too. But which guys right now would you say, if I gave you two guys that you could extend contracts to right now beyond Brooks Lee, who would that be?
Yeah, so a quick note on the Brooks Lee thing. Last episode, I had said that Brooks Lee, we were talking about like 3 years in the future as far as whether you're comfortable with Brooks Lee being your shortstop. I had said I either misspoke or I wasn't clear. I wasn't talking about team control, because we have team control of Brooks Lee through 2031. I was talking until he's arbitration eligible. And like, it's a little bit minutia, right? But like technically, Twins players aren't signed right now who are in arbitration because they haven't signed a deal for the following season. But anyway, regardless, quick clarifier. Some baseball guys get real upset if you're not really clear about what you mean as far as what contracts are when. But okay, one, it's a freebie, right? Joe Ryan is the clear one who I would sign right away. I mean, no question. Man, and then it gets interesting because I don't know that you have to sign Bailey Ober right now because he's struggled. Like, I still think you can let him go a couple seasons before you have to put that pen to paper. Pablo Lopez is a guy you could consider extending. This may sound silly, Dan, but I think right now the guy who I'd want to sign is Ryan Jeffers.
Oh, that's not. I thought you were going to play this guy.
I have magic hair that glows when I sing.
Way too early.
You think it's too early for Keishel?
No, we have team control for like until I'm going to be dead, I think, by the time he gets to sign a free agent contract, Dan.
I'm not dead.
Hang in there, David. We don't want you going just yet here.
But right now, Dan, if Jeffers walks right now, who would you have catching? If you look at the roster right now, on the active roster, go to catchers, Dan. He's the only guy there. He is the only guy on the active roster.
Mickey Gasper, right? Mickey Gasper has shown he can
listed
catch.
Under Gasper's listed
he's
under.
He's also batting 115 right now. So.
Also accurate, but he's a switch hitter, Dan. So he's got also
versatile. Yeah.
But so that's where I think I'd sign more out of necessity than like wanting. I think. Who would you sign? And assuming Joe Ryan is obviously the first.
Yeah, Joe Ryan's got to be one of them. I think I actually probably would go with Keishal, but then you make a really good point about the necessity of signing Ryan Jeffers. So maybe Falvey would be allowed 3. If he's allowed 3, then those are the 3 that I want.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think Keishal, I don't even know what you'd sign him for at this point. Like, you'd have to be like, okay, we're going to sign you to a deal that keeps you here through.
Was it the Tigers that signed Colt Keith, to like a deal before he even played a major league game? So I would say let's do something like that. Get Keishal locked up before he gets too expensive.
Can I just say, Dan, kind of interesting that neither of us said Royce Lewis. Because
no, I don't want, no.
Apparently he would be playing so much better, Dan, if he was under contract and he had that weight lifted from his shoulders.
What a great negotiating tactic there, Royce. Just say, I will play better if you give me $100 million. Right?
It's one of my favorite scenes in The Office when they're interviewing new candidates and the guy's like talking about, I have a 5-step plan that's going to double your profits. And they're like, okay, well, why don't you tell us?
I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
And he goes, well, I can't tell you because then you guys would have the plan. It's like,
exactly.
How do we know
that's
you have
Royce's idea right now.
Yeah. Well, clearly I have a plan. Who would just say they have a plan?
All right, let's go on here. Let's grade this miserable series.
Series grades.
It's an F, Dan. You made the White Sox look like a good baseball team. That's embarrassing. You should be ashamed. That's all I have to say about this team.
Yeah, I think it's like they've digressed like a grade level lower. in their overall skill level here. So I'm giving them enough. I'm not even going to do the rubric, I think, on this one.
Think, why waste time? Say lot word when few word do trick.
I think sometimes my students wish that I would just do that. All right, well, speaking of things that are a little outdated, if you're a river rat or a lake lifer in Minnesota, odds are that somewhere on your boat, you have a couple of those janky orange life jackets from back in the 90s. We get it. They're there just in case the sheriff rolls up. But here's the deal. You are the captain of your vessel. It's time to take charge. Take care of your people with safe, high-quality life jackets for all. It's 2025, folks. That means it's time to say goodbye to the old orange life jackets that probably don't even float anymore. Upgrade your life jackets at ravesports.com. You'll find value, great deals, and the sheriff will be proud of you. And if you use promo code Pulltab, it's 20% off your order. So Rave Sports, make waves.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
So, Dan, as bad as the White Sox and the Twins are, neither have been eliminated from postseason contention.
Right.
However, the Rockies, Dan, your Colorado Rockies are the first team to no longer be eligible for the postseason.
Yeah, and there's still like 35,000 people going to see those games every night at Coors Field, so go figure. A couple other things. Griffin Jack's having a hard time in Tampa here, which, you want to see former Twins do well, but I think we could have said you kind of knew what you got, right? He hadn't been awesome this year for the Twins.
No, it's been rough for Jax. He's had a couple of particularly off outings where he couldn't get out of innings, which is a problem. And I guess the Todd Bradley trade doesn't look that bad.
There you go. Right?
Their ERAs are pretty similar, actually. It's just we got more innings out of Bradley, I suppose.
Cal Raleigh broke the single-season home run record for a catcher with 49. He's a headline all the time out here. And then Guardians Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz are likely to have their leave of absence extended through the winter due to their betting schedule. Do you think they're ever playing again in the majors?
It's been so quiet. It's crazy that there's not more articles about this because those are important people to the Guardians team. Like, it's not like just guys who happen to be like just replacement level players. He was a closer and at times one of the best in the majors. It's insane that this doesn't get talked about every single day. I do wonder, I don't spend a lot of time on Guardians Twitter, but I do wonder how often that's just flying. What about Class A? When is he going to get to come back, if ever?
No, and they haven't had a note. And then, so another baseball note here. So Jason Stark, who, if you don't read Jason Stark, you're just not going to be as joyful, right? He writes, normally I tell my students don't use exclamation points, but Jason Stark gets to use them, right? The way that he talks about things. So we talked last episode about the possibility of expansion. And if baseball expands to 32 teams, Jason Stark makes a pretty convincing argument that they would actually go back to a 156 game schedule and drop 6 games out of there just because the math works better. I love that. The thing that I really like is that then a team gets an off day every week. And his argument is that that's going to, players are going to like that. They're going to be healthier, ideally with more rest in there. I love the symmetry that 32 gives you. And so he just makes a really compelling argument. I think it's worth looking at.
It is hard for me to sort of in my mind switch from saying 162 though, Dan. That's my biggest
play
hurdle.
154. So if anything, they would be going from 162, not even back to 154. So you'd have like a new era of 156. But I'm okay with that. I think I'm not too, old in my soul to take a little change like that.
I keep reading those realignment things, and some of the people are really set with the current way things are, and they're like, no, you could totally do this without making that many changes. But it's like, honestly, if they're going to change it a little bit, I'd rather have them change it a lot. There's some rivalries, it'd be really hard to say goodbye to the Cards Cubs, that's a big one, or even the Cubs and Brewers, if those two manage to be split. Some of those, I don't know why I'm so obsessed with the NL Central.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
But as long as Boston and New York are still in the same division, Dan, that's really what matters to me from a baseball history perspective.
Well, that may be true. There's a lot of baseball history out there. All right, we got a Jays series to pick for here, so let's go to that.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's Picks.
Dan, with the way this team is playing, I am very concerned about this next series of baseball. They just played the White Sox, folks, dropped a 2 of 3, and needed basically Royce Lewis to put the team on his back to win game 1. I'll be shocked if they win one of these, but the listeners are going to take Lewis, assuming he's going to continue his Herculean effort, Dan, in order to hoist this team to victories. Then it comes to me. I'm going to go with Luke Keeschel and just hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, and then Hogs is picking Buxton. So that leaves me with everybody else to kind of hopefully take the lead here in this. I think, you know what? I'm going to do something rash. I am going to take Cody Clemens, something I haven't done maybe ever this season. But let's hope that he goes to Canada and he comes back with a bit of a prize for me.
Oh, Canada.
It could happen, Dan. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform so that you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you could find us on Patreon. Link in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.